Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the December 20th, 2022 public board meeting to order and to apologize to our audience for us being tardy. We had a robust in-camera discussion. I would like to open by acknowledging that this meeting is taking place on unceded Algonquin homelands. I'd like to thank the Algonquin Nation for hosting us on their land, and I'm looking for a mover to approve the agenda. I see Trustee Milburn looking for a seconder. I see Trustee Preston. All those in favor of the agenda as presented? And opposed? Seeing none, that carries. I'm looking to know if anyone would like to declare an interest. If so, please do so now. Also, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Nope. No, still getting feedback. Not seeing anybody declaring an interest. We're going to move along. I'm going to say a few words. On behalf of the OCDSB, I'd like to express our thanks to the Director of Education and the Secretary of the Board, Camille Williams-Taylor, for her dedication to the students of our district. Throughout her time, Camille has championed respect, diversity, and inclusion in every aspect of her work, whether it was her visits to schools and classrooms where she met with, listened to, and engaged with students and staff, or in the boardroom, guiding trustees to make informed and educated decisions. Her impact on this district is noticeable and commendable, and I'd like to share a short video to highlight some of these efforts.
Congratulations, grade 12 students, graduates of 2020. When you started back in September of this school year, you certainly didn't expect the year that you received. Yet you have acted in stellar ways. You have been caring, you have been innovative, and you have embraced social responsibility in a remarkable way in our district. And we know that our future is in good hands with you at the helm. The first day of school in kindergarten is the first day of a wonderful road ahead. Our OCDSB team is eager to welcome you, your child, and your family to our learning community. Our high schools are a place where students can come to school, be who they are, and discover who they can become. This is the time to thrive. Welcome. Over the course of a tough year, we have all redefined our work together. I know you're all spent. We are all spent. But as we reflect on the year, I hope that you will recognize some of the gains that we have all made. We've all found innovative solutions and have done our best to look out for each other in our schools, our families, and in our social circles. And in addition, we've become acutely present to the injustices in our communities at home and far away. We've had to learn new ways to talk about the personal pain caused by hatred, and we've learned to find the humility to listen to difficult truth. Even when we were all nervous, you supported our teams while you managed your own challenges, like keeping up with the grade 3 math happening at your kitchen table while you were trying to work. Thank you so much for sticking with us. I am proud of the work that we have done together this year to keep our students safe and learning. The beginning of the school year represents a new start. And like all new starts, there's a feeling of excitement, some nervousness, and the hope that often comes on the threshold of something new. But this year is special. This year, we're not only starting a new school year, we are entering a phase of renewal in the OCDSB. Over the past 2 years, we not only learned about the value of connections between and amongst the members of our communities, we also examined the ways we have worked, learned, and played in the past. Barriers were unveiled, emphasizing the urgent need to take action in order to activate success for all students, all staff, and all of our communities. It is clear that anti-Black racism, Islamophobia, homophobia, and anti-Semitism are real in our communities and schools. These harms compromise the sense of emotional, physical, and psychological safety for some of our students and staff and impact the learning environment for all of us. I'm sure we've all noticed the reminders around our communities to use kind words that are deliberately communicated in businesses, places of work, learning, and leisure. So too, in the OCDSB, we will center care and kindness. The why of Black History Month is about removing the veil of invisibility. It's about pulling back the curtain that obscures the greatness, excellence, and very presence of people of African descent in our communities. The why of Black History Month is a disruption of the single story about Black people. The why of Black History Month is about celebration, recognition, and enrichment of the talents, contribution, and journeys of historical greats. Most importantly, the reflections of Black History Month serve as an inspiration for each of us as we author our own stories and build our own path to excellence. The stories of those who have achieved excellence and who have made impact include, but are not limited to, friction, disappointment, loneliness, and challenge. But these stories are also important reminders of the power of vision, resilience, potential, and community strength. So do take the time this month to reflect, learn, and explore these stories and the journeys of people of African descent historically and in our communities today. It is an opportunity to really see each other in the resplendent regalia of our excellence.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful video. And Camille, would you now join me at the podium? So when she joined us as the Director of Education, no one expected the challenges that she would face these past 4 years. Camille has proved and provided incredible leadership through these difficult times. Together with the senior team she has assembled, the OCDSB has overcome challenges with a commitment to supporting students and staff and our community. It has not been easy work, as decisions that could not possibly have made everyone satisfied were made, And yet through it all, it was obvious that her commitment to the community, to student learning and student well-being has never wavered. Camilla is returning to her home district, the Durham District School Board, and we wish her every success and hope that she continues to push forward her important goals and share her vision for equity and inclusivity. Camille, please come forward to accept this gift and as an expression of our appreciation. We're not done. So we got 2 books, both of which on the importance of lost words and missed words. And finally, thank you. While your time at this district might be coming to an end, I just want to let you know that you will be missed. You want to say a few words?
Thank you, Chair Lara, and thank you, trustees, and thank you, folks who are assembled here this evening. It has been quite a journey of 4 years. Lots of unanticipated opportunities for leadership, but I'd like to really appreciate that. Certainly, it was a shared leadership journey, shared with the senior team, but also shared leadership with the Board of Trustees. And through the trustees, I've learned a great deal about leadership, about myself, and about the voices of the community. So I really appreciate that we have had this time together, this work together, the shared problem solving together, the learning through some tough times. And certainly I do hope that, and I believe I will, take that learning and that experience to my next role with thanks to the OCDSB.
With that brings us to delegations. Before we hear tonight's delegations, I'd like to remind folks that we do have a timer, and we would ask that at the end of your timer, you cease speaking. And then we will allow for up to 3 questions of clarification from trustees. A question of clarification both ends in a question mark and is about the topic that was brought forward. It is not an opportunity to just continue speaking. The first person on our delegations list is Dina Friedman. Would you like to come forward? You may begin.
I would like to start by reading a letter from the End Jew Hatred movement. At this most traumatic year draws to a close, we reach out to the Ottawa Carleton District School Board trustees and senior staff to demand action. There's no time to waste. The safety and well-being of children and educators are at stake. The explosion of Jew hatred in schools under your administration promoted an unprecedented gathering of hundreds of Ottawa Jewish community members and allies on November 6, 2022. At Rise Up Ottawa, the message from the partnering organizations, members of parliament, dignitaries, speakers, and participants was clear. The Ottawa Carleton District School Board must confront the entrenched Jew hatred occurring on your watch. Jewish children as young as 3 years old report being harassed, threatened, attacked, gaslit, ignored, and dismissed. Students under your care are being denied the most basic right to their identity. Their human rights are under attack. Listen to your children, your students, hear them speak about their traumatic experiences while under your care. Children who braved the podium at Rise Up Ottawa to share the Jew hatred they experience at your schools on a regular basis. We are shocked and appalled that this Jew hatred has been allowed to flourish in the education system while nothing is being done to effectively counter the systemized nature of this anti-Semitism. In this letter, we've attached a QR code where you can watch the entire event again. You are on notice that we will not allow this to continue. You have an obligation grounded in law to protect children from this discriminatory harm. You have an obligation grounded in the morality of social justice to empower your Jewish students, faculty, and staff to safely express their identity in whatever manner they choose as Jews, including as Zionists. As the new year starts in January 2023, we expect to see immediate action on the expectations we have collectively expressed through a call to action to end Jew hatred in our schools. This call to action cannot be read in the 2 minutes allotted today. but it will be made available to you when I hand you this letter. Our human and civil rights are not up for debate. We will no longer sit in silence as children are oppressed by Jew hatred in your schools. We demand action and accountability to make our schools.
My apologies, Ms. Friedman. I do see a question of clarification from Trustee Kaplan-Murphy.
Please let her finish. This is very hard for a student to speak up. I'm sorry. She has like 10 seconds left. Can you please let our student, our Jewish voice, please let the Jewish voice be heard of the student, please.
I'm very sorry, but the rules have to be enforced equally. Trustee Kaplan-Murphy, your question of clarification.
First of all, I would like to acknowledge that it's Hanukkah and Chag Sameach. And thank you for speaking so bravely, Dina. I'm wondering, I have two questions. My first question is, how have you been affected by anti-Semitism in the schools?
Thank you for the question. Due to the sensitivity of the topic, I would like to ask the trustees not to interrupt me while I try and answer as best as I can. This is not easy. I'm a grade 12 student in the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. I am 17 years old. My father is Jewish, my mother is Jewish, and I am Jewish. While I cannot possibly tell you about every anti-Semitic incident that I've ever experienced, we do not have enough time, or how each one made me feel. What I do want to tell you is that we have a big problem in our Ottawa schools, and the school board is failing Jewish students. Let's start at the beginning. Why do you send your children to school? To learn, right? You send your children to school to learn and to create, to discover who they are and who they want to be while becoming the best versions of themselves. So I ask you, how can I succeed when my entire identity is reduced to one simple word? Jew. When things are at their best, I am the token Jew, the one teachers always ask to educate my peers about Judaism, to explain the difference between Christmas and Hanukkah, to tell the class that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are not regular New Year's celebrations. And that's a hard job, but it's one I've become quite good at, being the Jewish ambassador in school. But as I said, that's when things are at their best. Sometimes they get worse. Sometimes I must remain silent to stay safe during discussions and debates in class. I mustn't mention the country I was born in. I must stay quiet. And being the Jewish ambassador might actually be meaningful if instead of being pulled aside by teachers who tell me about the TV shows they've watched with Jewish characters, they instead were curious about Yom HaShoah or Holocaust Education Month. I nervously smile while also knowing they think this is the only way to get my attention. What exactly do they want from me? A pat on the back, a mazel tov gold star for being more inclusive in their choice of television programming? How can I, as a Jew, feel anything but frustrated, angry, and unimportant when this is the focus of my Jewishness in their eyes? Let's not talk about the killing of 6 million men, women, and children, but did you know that Mayam Bialik is Jewish? I deserve better. My peers deserve better. But it's not just sadness and frustration that I feel. There's something else. Something which is much worse, fear. As I walk to school every morning, I quickly tuck my Magen David necklace into my purple and gold NHS hoodie because I'm afraid. As I talk with the students whose parents insist that they not ever mention their Jewish identity at school, I am afraid. As I see a swastika carved on a chair in the auditorium, I'm afraid. As I listen to my teacher show biased and inaccurate videos that spread misinformation and hate towards Israel, I'm afraid. As I walk down the hallway and see a student shoving a Jewish peer in the locker, yelling effing Jew, I'm afraid. And with each incident, I ask myself, what is happening? How is this my public school board in 2022? How could we let this happen? My aunt once told me that people will tell you exactly who they are. You just have to listen. So I listen. I listen to the silence of my educators and the silence of those who call themselves activists. I listen when teachers say that the school's Jewish Student Union is not a place for Israelis or discussion of Israel. I listen when my Jewish friends get asked what their favorite flavor of gas is. I listen as my peers call Israeli citizens Nazis. I wonder what they would call me if they could see my Israeli passport. I listen when Zionist has become a bad word and the root of all evil. I listen when the Jewish people are denied the basic right of all free people, the right to self-determination in their ancestral homeland. I listen, and I don't like what I'm hearing. The silence from my educators is deafening. By saying nothing, they're telling me everything, that nobody has my back and nobody will keep me safe. They're telling me, you're on your own, Jew. Good luck. They're telling me that this is never ending, that the next generation will have to fight to be heard just like I'm fighting here today, just like my ancestors begged to be heard. over and over throughout history, in Fez in 1033, at York in 1190, in Strasbourg in 1348, in Ukraine in 1648, and on and on and on. But instead of being heard, I am dismissed, gaslit, and ignored because Jews don't count. I don't know how you could let us get here. We are begging for help. How can parents and educators send their children to class with a burden like this and expect them to thrive? In the face of the overwhelming evidence of bias and anti-Semitism from teachers, administrators, and trustees, what did we get from the Ottawa Carleton District School Board? A pretty email and the promise of a fresh new start to the new year. Words mean little unless they are followed by actions. And so far, I have seen no action. How many times do Jewish students need to tell those responsible for our safety that we are afraid before a change is made? And in order to make that change, you need to listen to the Ottawa Jewish community. You need to mandatory anti-Semitism training for all staff and students. Don't have your equity team hire them on their own. They're not Jewish, and they continue to create immense harm by hiring anti-Semites to teach about anti-Semitism. Speak to the Jewish Federation and your Jewish teacher leaders. Or better yet, hire a Jewish equity coach, like we've been asking for a year. You need Jewish representation on your large team of senior staff. We need them. Implement serious consequences for hate happening in our school. Be transparent with all students, staff, and families. I want to thank you for letting me speak tonight, but if I'm being honest, many have spoken right here before me for over a year, and nothing has been done. I don't want to hear that you're on a learning journey about the oldest form of hate. It's been over a year. Time's up. Most of the trustees were also at Rise Up Ottawa. We educated you with pleasure. So please listen and do your jobs. After all, we are the next generation. And if nothing changes, that next generation, the future of the Jewish people will continue to be in school, learning to be silent and afraid. I opened by telling you who I was, by telling you that my father is Jewish, my mother is Jewish, and that I am Jewish. I didn't choose those words at random. They're words that should echo through time as an example of where anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic hate invariably lead. This has been a difficult but important topic. I would like to respectfully ask that we do not continue with questions at this time. Thank you for your time.
Trustee Jennings.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Firstly, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Hanukkah for those who are celebrating. And thank you, Dina. I've heard your words, very impactful. And I'd like to give you the opportunity, though, to give you back those 10 seconds to finish what you wanted to say in the beginning.
Thank you. I'll just continue from where I left off. And there's a copy of the letter that can be passed around. And I also believe you'll all be sent that letter later this evening. Our human and civil rights are not up for debate. We will no longer sit in silence as children are oppressed by Jew hatred in our schools. We demand action and accountability to make our schools safe spaces where Jews are fully included and respected and can learn and grow into leaders shaping a future free of bigotry, racism, and Jew hatred. We will be in touch in the new year. Sincerely, the End Jew Hatred Movement, supported by Anti-Semitism Educators Alliance International, Anti-Semitism Educators Alliance of Canada, B'nai B'rith Canada, the Canadian Anti-Semitism Education Foundation, Canadians for Israelis' Legal Rights, Clean Speech Ottawa, Educators Against Anti-Semitism, End Jew Hatred Canada, J Teach, the Lawfare Project, Mattis Law Society, Ottawa Against Anti-Semitism, Parents Against Anti-Semitism, Rise Up Ottawa, and Stand With Us Canada. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you, Ms. Friedman. I'm now looking for Susan McGann.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for having me. I have something very important that I would like you to hear.
You have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Found out I kill all the Jews. I couldn't believe what I was reading because I didn't understand what I did wrong. Is being Jewish a bad thing? They continued with messages like, John knows families from Germany. They have a gas chamber in the basement. What were they talking about? Is it so funny? The torturous horde killing of 6 million Jews is now a joke. They continued with things like Jews thought that the gas chambers were actually showers. Can you believe that? These are just a few examples where I didn't know what to do or what to say. I asked them to just stop. I felt outraged and disgusted. Unfortunately, these scary and anti-Semitic messages did not stop. What happened next? Well, they said one last anti-Semitic insult and renamed the chat into "We All Hate the Jews." I immediately left the group chat without a heartbeat hesitation and told my mother. I will now take a minute to give a message to the parents in the audience. I don't mean to scare you, but your child has probably experienced anti-Semitism at school over the past year on multiple occasions. Maybe they're not telling you, or they don't know how to recognize it, but they most likely have experienced it. Please, as it's important to talk with your children.
They can't see it, so.
Just talk. Breathe. Nice.
Okay. They can't see me. Okay, let me just see.
So, hang on a second.
I can't see the screen, honey, so I think I should just talk.
Yeah, just talk.
Hello?
Just talk.
Your timer is still running.
Oh, okay. Did anybody see what the
We
screen?
heard.
But
We
you
could
couldn't
hear
see
it, but
the
we could
screen.
not see it.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to read it.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Seriously? Okay. Do you have any questions?
I see Trustee Bell and then Trustee Kaplan-Murph.
I'm sorry that your presentation did not work out the way that you would have liked it to. Would you be able to summarize what you were trying to show us in that recording, please?
Thank you. I can summarize it. What I want to show you was a few students' voices from Rise Up. They're explaining their experiences of anti-Semitism in the schools. One student, Ron Dagan, was explaining his experience in a group chat. He says, 2 people in the group chat who I thought were good people found out that I was Jewish. With what followed were messages like, "You're Jewish? Ew. We hate them. Kill all the Jews." I couldn't believe what I was reading because I didn't understand what I did wrong, said Ron. Is being Jewish a bad thing? They continued with messages like, "John Doe's family is from Germany. They have a gas chamber in their basement." What were they talking about, says Ron. Did they think this was funny? The torturous killing of 6 million Jews is now a joke? I asked them to just stop. I felt outraged and disgusted. Unfortunately, these scary anti-Semitic messages did not stop. What happened next? Well, they said one last anti-Semitic insult, renaming the chat into "We All Hate the Jews." I immediately left the group chat without a heartbeat of hesitation and told my mother. I will now take a minute, this is Ron speaking, I'm speaking in his voice, to give a message to parents and audience. I don't mean to scare you, but your child has probably experienced anti-Semitism at school over the past year on multiple occasions. Maybe they're not telling you, or they've not recognized it, but they most likely have experienced it. Please have this important talk with your child. So maybe you'll be one of the few lucky parents who will be able to prepare your child before anything happens. And other student, Leah Friedhoff. When a boy made a Nazi flag on paper and frantically waved it around the classroom screaming, "Hail Hitler," The teacher watched the whole thing and said nothing. These are a few of her experiences. Another one, I made a new friend. He told me he wanted to introduce me to his friends, and so at recess, he brought them over to me. Before I even had a chance to say hello, one of them demanded from me, "You're the Jew kid, right?" I guess I naively thought maybe he was curious about my background the way all my middle school friends were. So I eagerly told him yes. He stuck his hand in his pocket, shook once around, and said to me, "I guess you want these then, don't you?" A group of them, including the new friend I thought I had made, all burst out laughing, and I had to excuse myself from the situation. So I went to a teacher on duty, told her about it, and pointed out the kids in the field. The teacher's response was along the lines of, "Recess is almost over. If I pulled them aside, it would take away from their learning time. It's not fair to take them away from their learning time." Thank you. Those are the voices I wanted you to hear.
Thank you. I now have a question from Trustee Kaplan Murph.
Thank you very much for speaking on behalf of those students. As I'm assuming you're a parent, but I don't know if you are one of their parents, but
I'm not.
Okay. So I don't know if you can answer this question then, but one of the questions is, given the scenarios that you've described, what action would you like to see?
Well, first of all, I think that there needs to be some Jewish representation through equity on the equity team so that Jewish students have a place to go. They have a place to go where they feel their voices are going to be heard, because obviously in these examples, the teachers didn't really know how to support the Jewish children. I'll assume that they didn't know how to, rather than they didn't want to, but say they didn't know how to support the Jewish children, and a Jewish equity coach would be able to help the student and as well as educate the teachers, help determine the education that the teachers would get so they understand what is anti-Semitic. Also, I think there needs to be a definition of anti-Semitism that everybody can follow, so everybody understands the rules around anti-Semitism. So there is a definition of anti-Semitism that's been accepted by Canada and Ontario, the IR definition, that has not been adopted by the board. And this definition needs to be adopted by the board. And also, there needs to be consequences. So I didn't see any consequences in these situations, and I'm sure that there's thousands of other situations with Jewish kids that there has not been consequences. And if there are, they haven't been serious enough. Just the example in the newspaper just today that a parent was told by the administration that there was going to be consequences for the situation that happened at SRB with a Nazi sign on the floor, a student seeing this, and a Heil Hitler. And the parents were told that the student they were going to know when the student came back to school, and they did not. So the student had to sit in school with this student, and and then in the newspaper it said there was a miscommunication. So I think that we have to do better than that.
Seeing no further questions, thank you, Ms. McGahan. I'm now looking for Timothy Daum.
Recording in progress.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Sorry for the technical difficulties. My name is Timothy
Two
Daum.
minutes, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Timothy Daum, and I currently have one child in the Ottawa School Board. I'm not Jewish, but I'm concerned about the treatment of Jewish children within the Ottawa School Board. My partner went to the Rise Up conference, was emotionally affected by the stories of these young people. I too heard their stories, and her pain and those stories caused me to want to be part of this message. As a Black man that grew up in the United States and now lives in Canada, I had a further responsibility because I know, as I'm sure you all do, that many Jewish leaders who fought for the civil rights of African Americans in the 1960s. People like Rabbi Abraham Heschel, who worked hand in hand with Martin Luther King Jr., especially in the March on Salem, and many other Jewish leaders that not only helped but formed the NCAACP. These women, famous and hard-fought people, fought for the civil rights of myself and others like me. And in a climate today where Jewish children are having their civil rights violated, I had to take my stand for my fellow human being. My goal is really simple to understand, and I would like to just be able to address it to see, hopefully get some answers. First and foremost, does the Ottawa School Board see its Jewish students as a minority that needs to be protected, just like they see Blacks, Muslims, Indigenous, LGBTQS plus students, and then many other minority groups? If the answer to that question is no, then I'd like to understand why. But if you do view Jewish students as a minority that must be protected throughout the board, then why are you not accepting the recommendations that groups like this and other Jewish community groups are recommending? I appreciate you giving me my time to express my thoughts. I would now like to await questions from anyone else on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Downs. I see Trustee Jennings.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your delegation. From your perspective, which is unique, how do you feel we can do better? What are your recommendations?
So let's first, as a Black individual, I appreciate the efforts that my student or my children have benefited from the efforts that the board has done to end Black hate within the school board. And those same types of measures included equity standards, definitions, and consequences for racism that was happening to African Americans and Blacks of all race, of all different countries within Ottawa. I think the same thing needs to happen for our Jewish students. So the first thing that needs to happen is just like any other, there has to be an identification that there is a group of students who feel at their core that they are not being heard, and that their feeling of not being part of what mainstream feels is the group, it's really important that that's heard. And the only way you can do this is by having an equity person at the table that represents them, that listens to them, that parents can communicate to, and that can help the board understand how to navigate that. That's really important. I just think the board has successfully done this with other groups. I just find it challenging that you can't do this for this group, this particular group. The second is that you have to have a definition of what anti-Semitism is. And if you don't have that definition, how can you then define the rules of how you're going to defend it? There's acceptance already from the Canadian government. There's acceptance already from the provincial government. So it's not like it's not like the school board has to do so much work to define the definition. It's already there. Just accept it. By accepting it from the top down, you're letting your whole administration know this is our standard of definition that we live by, and everything else is judged by that. So there's no miscommunication when something happens because there's a clear definition. And finally, there has to be consequences. Everybody knows within the school board today that anti-hate or hate towards Blacks is unacceptable. It's just like it's a red line that just does not get crossed. We're fortunate because of the civil rights movement and your adoption of those things that we don't have those types of challenges anymore. But Jewish students do. So that line needs to be the same. It's only fair. And as a person who's benefited from that line, I want it for all not just for us, but for all. I hope I've answered your question.
Seeing no further questions, thank you, Mr. Down.
Thank you.
I'm now looking for Michael Moskovich. Michael Moskovich. Is he in the room?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have 2 minutes whenever you begin.
Thank you. I'd like to share a video with you.
I don't know if that's going to work, but good luck.
Over the years, I've accumulated more stories of Jewish hate from my peers than I care to have, to the point where if I wanted to list them all, we'd be here all day. From people calling me a kike and a feminazi behind my back, to some stranger online telling me they wished I had died in the Holocaust, it seemed like the more I learned about anti-Semitism and the more I tried to fight it, the more hate I faced. 2 months ago, I spoke at the school board meeting about some of the trauma I continue to experience in their schools, and the response was, "We're only starting our learning journey." Not that they were going to try to help me, that hate is unacceptable, or that they were going to take immediate action, just that they had to learn more. See, the specific issues we're facing as Jewish students in public schools right now are only half the problem. It's also the sheer lack of education and care from educated professionals, the gaslighting, the dismissal, the ignorance and tolerance for hate. I'm just so tired of having the consistent internal conflict on whether or not I should tell people the reason I can't hang out Fridays because of Shabbat. Tired of having to decide if I should say something when my friends are posting online that Jews are racist, white supremacist colonizers. Tired of explaining to teachers that I need an extension because a project they've assigned is due on Yom Kippur. Tired of teachers and principals telling me there's nothing they can do because they don't even have a definition of anti-Semitism. The truth is, Jews have been fighting for a sense of inclusion and belonging across public schools for a long time. Kids shouldn't have to beg to be heard and protected. I am not special in my experiences. Most of my Jewish peers have had to deal with this stuff before, but every time anyone's brave enough to come forward, nothing is done. I'm hoping that Rise Up Ottawa's call to action today will start to make change.
Joy, wait, come back.
You have about 10 seconds.
What happened?
We heard the video.
Did you see it?
We could not see it, no.
There's a problem then because I shared my screen.
I don't know why. We could hear it though.
Okay.
If there are any questions, I see Trustee Kaplan-Murph.
Thank you. I do plan to put forward notice of a motion later at the end of this evening, but I wanted to ask our delegate, to your knowledge, what has actually been done in terms of holding the board accountable for any of the anti-Semitism that the students that you know have experienced?
I really don't know what the board has or has not done. What I've seen is what I've read in the newspaper, and including an article in today's paper, which shows that very little, if anything, has been done. To give you a bit of background, my father is a Holocaust survivor. He was the victim of anti-Semitism in Europe and in Canada when he arrived here. As we've seen tonight, anti-Semitism is rising its ugly head in Ottawa. I don't want to read more stories about anti-Semitic incidents at Ottawa public schools, such as the recent one at Sir Robert Borden High School. I was really sick to my stomach with what I read in today's article. It's truly unfortunate that proper consequences were not taken for these actions. Can you imagine the anguish or anxiety of parents and children who go to school in fear every day, every week for an entire school year? I ask that all participants consider this. We have just heard from students who have been the recipients of anti-Semitic acts. Intergenerational Holocaust trauma is real. The pain is real. The suffering lingers. Put yourselves in these people's shoes. The students attend school, public school, with inadequate defense to such vile hatred. This is a public education system. Please take it upon yourselves to take a proactive approach to enable students to attend school freely. In order to reach this goal, it is imperative that the OCDSB hire a Jewish equity coach, a respected and knowledgeable educator to steer this ship through these murky waters. Thank you.
Trustee Aziz.
Thank you. And thank you to the delegate for spending your evening here. I know this is not something that people want to be spending the days of Hanukkah doing, and it's I'm speechless, but I was going to ask the video that we were able to hear but not see. Was that part of the Rise Up Ottawa information that is available? Is that video available online for us to?
Yes, it is
watch?
available online. It's the same video that my colleague Susie would have used. I don't know why it wouldn't let us share. That's a technical glitch that someone will have to look at.
That's okay. I bet that it's online is helpful. We can
Yes,
go
it
back
is.
and watch it. Thank you. Thank you. That's all, Chair.
Seeing no further questions, thank you, Mr. Moskovich. I'm now looking for Gladys Zareski. Hello, Gladys. You have 2 minutes. We can hear you whenever you're ready.
Okay. Am I allowed to show my video now?
You can play a video. We won't be able to see it.
Okay.
We'll hear it though.
That's okay. So my name is Gladys Zarecki, and I'm going to try to show my video now. So you can come and see. I did the share screen. I didn't get anything here.
Just play it directly.
From where? Oh, from.
No, not from that. Just go to the play from the link directly. Yeah, from there.
As nearly all Jewish students experience, my time at high school was met with a variety of anti-Semitism. I had teachers who refused to move tasks from the holiest Jewish holidays, heard jokes about the Holocaust, and of course, I witnessed and experienced a barrage of anti-Israel anti-Semitism after May of 2021. I dedicated much of my last year of high school to speaking out against anti-Semitism to my school board, through delegations, speeches, and one-on-one meetings with senior staff, including the superintendent of equity. I'm saddened to say that it is only the beginning of the work that needs to be done. Because even after graduating, I still hear the same stories about anti-Semitic incidents and features at the OCDSB. I still hear about workshops being given about anti-Semitism run by anti-Semites. And it is clear to me that we are still not being listened to, not well enough. And Jewish students are becoming the main target of this hate. I can't tell you the number of times I've spoken somewhere where I've been told not to use the word Israel. Even at the Jewish Society I'm taking part in this year, I've been warned that doing anything related to Israel would get us shut down. And the easiest way to fight this is to be educated yourself. Because if you know, as a Jew, that Zionism is a Jewish virtue that's existed for thousands of years, that uplifts the Jewish right to self-determination and statehood, then you have the ability to explain this and educate others the next time someone compares Zionists to Nazis. And you have the power to do so before they fall into the web of misinformation that is too easy to spread. One basic principle, and that is that people do not seem to take.
My apologies. Your time has run out. There is now an opportunity for up to 3 questions from members of the trustee board. Seeing, Trustee Kaplan Mirth.
I'm wondering whether we had difficulty sharing the video. I'm wondering whether you would be able to summarize what was said by that student who was speaking.
Okay, so am I here?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so the student was speaking, and the part that really spoke to me was that I can tell you the number of times I've spoken somewhere where I've been told not to use the word Israel. Even at the Jewish Society I'm taking part this year, I've been warned that doing anything related to Israel could get us shut down. So I'm a grandmother of 3 grandchildren that are now in the OCDSB. I was the mother of a child who was also in the OCDSB. So 20 years ago, my own son had a positive OK experience. And I'm alarmed to see that my grandchildren, instead of being in a more open and more tolerant society, you think over time, the school world would be improved in that area. They are going through such a hard time. It started with COVID, with the online learning and more students on social media. That's where at first that I was aware of, it could be even earlier, there started to be visual and verbal, horrifying threats and provocations, harassment and prejudice against them and against their Jewish peers. And they are living through wave after wave of this. I myself attended. It was beautiful in certain ways, a multicultural night at one of the high schools where my grandchildren are. And all around, there were displays of different countries. I'm born in Morocco. I'm Jewish, but I'm born in Morocco. There was a Moroccan table. I came in my Moroccan outfit. I took pictures with the other teenagers, high school students from Nigeria, Angola, all the countries. My grandchild had a table with some Jewish foods, cultural foods, just Shabbat, Passover, holidays like that, foods to taste, very inoffensive, unprovocative, politically correct. The Palestinians had a map of Israel with only the word Palestine on it, not the name Israel as well, or not no name at all. Palestinian flag proudly displayed, Palestinian title proudly displayed, the map of Israel and the word Israel not displayed. So when this girl, that I didn't know her from before, she spoke at Rise Up and I was there, and I heard her say that she's been shut down and not allowed to say the word Israel, I believed her. And when I believed that sentence, I believed every word she said, and I felt it right here. I'm also a retired teacher. I've worked over 20 years in the school board. I have 2 incidences that I would really like to talk about. One positive, but that can be used to support what we're asking about Judaism and Jewish people, and one not so positive. The positive one first. I taught at Pinecrest School for 5 years with a lot of Somali students and other students from all over the world. There was a Muslim multicultural officer that was appointed to help the teachers like me, the parents of the Somali students, and acted as a liaison. So for parent-teacher interviews, for problems with discipline, this multicultural liaison officer who was Muslim in a hijab could sit and support. And she was perfect. She was hired by your board. She didn't show bias towards the Somali families, and she didn't show bias towards the teachers or the administration. She was really equitable, fair, honest, frank, open. She would talk in her language to the Somali parents when need be. She would talk to us in English. And she would explain each point of view and each perspective to the 3 groups: administrators, teachers, parents, even students if they were there. And then she came into the staff room and she would be informally talking with the teachers and hearing what we had to say. And all I'm asking is do the same thing for Jewish people like you did so well, so you know how to do it for the Somali and the Muslim population. You know how to do it for the First Nations. You know how to do it for LGBTQ. We have Orange T-shirt Day for the First Nation. We have Pink Day for the LGBTQ and bullying. And the teachers, I was a teacher in French, in grade 2 till grade 8, in English and math, all subjects, all schools. I went to 4 different schools to teach for the 20 years that I was in the OCDSB. And I know that the teachers spend cross-curricular for a month when we do Black History Month, when we do First Nations, when we do LGBTQ, when we do anti-bullying. Did we ever spend a month on Jewish history, anti-Semitism, problems with Jewish people, we celebrated Chinese New Year. We were busy 2 weeks doing Chinese New Year parade, costumes, foods, music. Do we celebrate anything about Judaism and Israel? It's taboo. So that's the good story, because I'm giving you, saying the same like you did with this multicultural liaison officer, do for us. Now, the other thing, I'm proud of my position on this thing, but it wasn't so easy because I'm Jewish and because I personally didn't feel disrespected as a Jewish teacher, but I did retire 2 years ago, and this was my experience. I feel bad, very bad. I'm shocked, I'm alarmed when I hear that Jewish teachers are suffering now under not the best conditions. But I was teaching in Pinecrest during Ramadan. Doesn't always fall during the school year, doesn't always fall in our time, but it did. The Muslim students asked all the teachers who can give up their lunch and their recess and let us come in their room to pray during Ramadan. All the teachers on the staff, I was the only one who volunteered. I used to go to equity committee meetings. Sure, I would like to stand up for Jewish people, but if Muslim people need something for their religion, I'm going to stand up too. I gave up my lunch hour. I gave up my recess time so they could pray in my room. And I was so impressed, and I loved doing it because I saw these same kids who were giving us a little bit discipline problems in class. Maybe they weren't doing their homework. But when they were praying, they were exemplary. They were all quiet. They were disciplined. They put their coats down on the floor instead of carpets. They went to the bathroom, put water on their feet and hands. The girls put scarf around their pants. The boys were in front, the girls in back. It was perfectly quiet. Not a word was said until the prayers began. And they did their prayers by heart, fasting. All they wanted was a quiet place under supervision so they're allowed to pray and not be in the rooms where the kids are eating pizza and hot dogs and all these things. And of course I did it. But I was the only one who volunteered. And I said the teachers and the administrators need to be educated about this so that they should be welcomed with open arms. They should be celebrated for doing such an honor to their people. And I tried to do my part. And now that I'm retired and I have 3 grandkids in the system, I would like the school and the teachers to do their part for the Jewish people. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to leave time for the other speakers at this point. Thank you very much.
We're now looking for Robert Levine.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Great. Thank you, Chair. My name is Robert Levine. I, along with other Jewish community members, feel like there needs to be a review of the decision-making in addressing anti-Semitism, along with a system in place to ensure discipline for acts of hate and harassment. Consistently staffed discretion has allowed these incidences to occur without consequence, which is both perpetrating the increase in anti-Semitism and normalizing it in both our schools and community. Well, we all just read about the abhorrent incident at SRB with a Jewish student being shown a swastika while another gave a Nazi salute. We know this is just one example of the hundreds that have occurred. What is also enlightening is an article from the Ottawa Citizen titled "Teachers Silenced" that discusses concerns from staff about the safety for students and teachers due to a lack of discipline as policy in schools. This has led kids to be afraid of simply going to the bathroom out of fear of being assaulted. Teachers are instructed to be quiet about the unsafe environment or face investigation, which many teachers then were. This tactic of principals and superintendents sweeping incidents under the rug is the experience many Jewish students and families know well. The tactic of ignoring incidents and pretending that they don't exist is how anti-Semitism is being dealt with at the OCDSB. The lack of discipline has essentially signaled that hate crimes and harassment toward Jews are acceptable. Since when do we believe tolerance of intolerance is appropriate? I'm recommending the following 4 actions. 1, a Jewish equity coach should be added to the equity team to best serve Jewish families, schools as incidents occur, and properly implement anti-Semitism training for all staff. 2, a rubric of discipline needs to be created for principals and superintendents on how to address anti-Semitic incidents. Every incident should be documented for transparency with a student receiving a copy. The principal and superintendent will also have to justify if they are choosing not to discipline. We need to focus more on the victims of these incidents and less on the perpetrator's reasoning. 3, a review of disciplinary policies along with police resources. Since when are principals trained to investigate hate crimes? And lastly, 4, a questionnaire should be sent out to teachers from a third party, asking them if they feel safe at school, if they feel like their ability to look out for students is being suppressed, and along with what changes should be done if necessary. All students, including Jews, should be allowed to feel safe at school.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Trustee Jennings.
Thank you to the delegation, and thank you for your recommendations. In your opinion, why do you feel that the concerns of the Jewish community are not being heard?
Thank you for that question. You know, there's been a few obvious signals that things aren't being addressed. This fall, OCDSB Cares was launched to give a platform for students to reach out for help. And it lists resources specifically for Black, Muslim, Somali, Arabic-speaking, 2S LGBTQ plus students, but not Jews. They were omitted. After years of knowing about out-of-control anti-Semitism, how does the equity team omit that? The impression is that OCDSB cares, just not about Jews. Further, when trustees were given anti-Semitism training last fall, the equity team decided to cancel Canada's envoy to anti-Semitism from speaking and replace him with a consultant who is wholly unqualified to educate about anti-Jewish hate. Like, how does this keep happening with the equity team? There are so many instances that keep happening, and the same story is reverberated from one to the next, which is a lot of stories and a lot of "we'll get back to you," and things just aren't done. And it feels like things are going to principals and superintendents and they're just being swept under the rug. My understanding is teachers are paid a salary, principals are their salaries based off of the student body. And if there's no problems
Recording
in
in
your school,
progress.
then you're looked on as a favorable principal. If you want to keep moving up the ladder, you shouldn't have any incidents. So everything is just suppressed. It's better if it doesn't exist because it will look good for the sake of your job. I mean, unfortunately, based off of what we're seeing, what happened at Pinecrest in the article this weekend, it looks like the OCDSB is not interested about the safety of students. They're not interested about the safety of teachers. The only thing that they're looking to protect is prospectively their jobs.